Let's start with some more economic news and financial news. Yesterday, we started the show digging into some more meaty economics and finance type stories. People seem to like it. So let's do it again. We now have more detail about the proposed Joe Biden tax plan. Now, you might remember that during a number of White House press briefings, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, would repeat this line: nobody making under $400,000 a year would pay any more under Joe Biden. And Jen Psaki was rightly confronted with the question, is that 400,000 individual or is that 400,000 for a couple? Because typically there are two different sort of cutoffs for individuals versus couples. And Jen Psaki would weirdly say it's for both, which didn't make any sense. And at the time I called it out and some of you got mad and said, David, sir, no, it didn't make any sense. Now we have more visibility into what the actual policy is going to be. And so let's dig into it. There's a new report from CNBC. Joe Biden's proposed 39.6% top tax rate would apply at these income levels. Now, as a reminder, what we're talking about here is something really uncontroversial. Just so you remember, we're talking about going back from 37 to 39.6. All of this debate about raising taxes on the rich, what we're talking about is just going back to a rate we previously had for top earners, which was 39.6 instead of 37%. That's all we're talking about here. The rate would affect, this is the key part, the rate would affect single individuals with a taxable income of more than $452,700 a year and married couples filing jointly with income over $509,300, according to a budget proposal issued Friday. Also important to remember, the top rate is slated to increase to 39.6% after 2025, even if Congress doesn't pass Biden's proposal. So understand, when we talk about truly progressive economic policy, and we look at some of the things they have in Northern Europe. I have friends in the Netherlands who are working there and have told me about the tax structure there. We are here talking about a disagreement between Republicans and Democrats, most around the edges, where we're saying once you get to $450,000 a year in income, on everything you earn beyond that, because remember, it's a marginal tax system, should you pay 37% or 39.6%? So let me give you an example of how relatively little of an impact this has on people who would actually pay it. Okay. Remember that because it's marginal, up to $452,700, you pay what people earning less than that pay. Once you get to $452,700 a year, you start paying 39.6 instead of 37. So imagine someone making $1 million a year. Okay. If you make $1 million a year, if on everything above 452,000, you go from paying 37% to 39.6%, that's an extra 2.6 percentage points on that difference. Your total tax from this big tax increase is an increase of $10,900 for the year. Now, I have, I'm a big personal finance guy. Maybe I'm a better saver or budgeter than other people. If you're making $1 million a year gross and $10,900 a year in extra taxes changes your lifestyle, you're doing something wrong. You're not budgeting correctly. You're not managing your finances correctly. Okay. When we talk about paying an extra 2.6% on the $547,000 that would be subject to that top tax rate, if that materially changes your lifestyle in any way, you are terrible with money. And I'll be honest, you probably don't make $1 million a year to begin with, unless you are getting that through some kind of inheritance or whatever, right? But if you're like an entrepreneur making $1 million a year, you probably are good enough with your money that you won't even notice this extra $10,900 a year in taxes. That's under an extra $1,000 a month for someone making $1 million a year. So that is what we're talking about. And of course, the reaction from many people to this is going to be, why aren't we talking about a higher rate for people making even more? What about, as I've proposed before many times, don't we need a higher bracket where, okay, it goes to 39.6 when you get to 452,000, but maybe at $1 million a year in income, it goes to 42%. Maybe at $2 million a year in income, it goes to 46%. These are the types of proposals that have been outlined by some of the most progressive members of Congress. And we're like just barely even touching the edges here. So this is what the debate is about. And importantly, as the article reminds us, the Trump tax cuts of 2017, which dropped that rate from 39.6 to 37, they automatically expire in 2025 if Congress does nothing. Okay, so I know we have a presidential election in 2024. It may be consequential in many ways. One of those ways would be, what does it do to that top tax rate? But what we're talking about here, I mean, it's almost laughable, right? Like the debate right now is, should the rate for those making over 450K a year go to 39.6 from 37 now? And by now, I mean like, this year, next year, or should it not happen until 2025? That's the big debate. And I will never understand, although people like Jonathan Haidt have explained it to me, I still don't totally get it. Why do people who make $40,000 a year care about this? You've got people who make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, even $90,000 or $100,000 a year, going crazy about how Joe Biden wants to increase your taxes. We're talking about 2.6 percentage points on people making nearly $500,000 a year or more. And the outrage from these folks, I don't get. Now, somebody like Jonathan Haidt would say, what's going on here is it's not about whether Joe the plumber making $40,000 a year is actually going to pay more personally. It's about whether he or she, but we're talking about Joe the plumber, imaginary here. It's about whether Joe the plumber believes that this is a tax change that is on his team or it's for someone else's team. And we saw it in 2010 with the Tea Party. A bunch of people making very little money who were very proudly and loudly against tax increases for the very, very rich. So that's the situation. We now have the exact numbers from the Joe Biden proposal and administration. And it is shocking to me how many people don't even understand that we have a marginal tax system. Like, I've met lawyers who think that if the top tax rate is 39.6%, if you make $1 million a year, you pay 39.6% on all of your income, when the reality is you pay that only on the income above that top tax threshold. Disturbing that so many people seem not to understand this, but these are the numbers. We now have them, and we'll see what the reaction is from the right. One of our sponsors is Magic Spoon breakfast cereal, sweet and delicious like the cereals we loved as kids, but without the sugar and without the carbs. Magic Spoon tastes just like those sugary cereal brands we know and love, but it's only 140 calories, 0 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, and packed with 13 to 14 grams of protein. So it's perfect for anyone following a keto or low carb diet, or just anyone who wants to avoid sugar, like me. You can choose from flavors like cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, or build your own variety box. If you don't love Magic Spoon as much as I do, they'll give you all of your money back, no questions asked. That is how much Magic Spoon believes in their product. You'll get $5 off when you go to magicspoon.com/Pakman and use the coupon code Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.